So in this video, I just want to talk through how to actually make the Excel spreadsheet and graphs using the online version of Excel. So just go to office.com, log in with your student information, and you should be able to do quite a bit. But in this case, we're going to use the online version. Just go to Create, and we would just want to create a blank Excel workbook. It should show up something like this. Give it just a moment. And we're going to do the short string first, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in on top here. We can do this a little bit later. And if you remember, Excel always plots the first column along the horizontal axis. So in this case, we want the displacement or the stretch of the spring in meters to be our first column. And again, to stretch it, you can just put your mouse right here or your finger and double click on it, or you can stretch it over as well. It would help if I spelled displacement correct. And then the other column is going to be the force in newtons. And just to make it a little bit prettier, I'm going to bold that just to make it a little bit cleaner. Maybe stretch that column over a little bit and this column as well. And maybe even format this a little bit. Let's make that a little bit larger and bold, so we got it. And then just to speed things along real quick, I'm just going to paste my data in. I hope. No, maybe not. Give me just a quick moment. I'm going to grab it from another sheet and come back to this one. Since I already have it here, let me go back here and paste. There we go. Now we need to make a graph of this. You can do all kinds of things with this as well. You can center it and such. But again, just highlight this, and then we're going to go Insert, and then under Charts, we're going to do the pull down, and we want just the scatter with no line connection. And that should show something like that. And yeah, sure enough, it's pretty linear. If your graph at any point gets stuck over in the corner, make sure your zoom down here is set to 100, and then you should be able to drag it back over again. We need to add some axes titles, so I'm going to say a horizontal title below axes, and our axis below the title there is going to be displacement in meters. Say OK, and then we're going to add a primary vertical rotated along the side, and this is going to be force in newtons. So we've labeled our axes. Now make sure you click on the chart. If you click off the chart, this won't exist. But if you click on the chart, one of your options under the chart menu should be, besides all these other ones here, you may have to scroll over a little bit, but you should find a format button, either hiding or it may be more visible than mine. We're going to format the chart. And the first thing we're going to do is format the chart title. Yeah, we want to keep it there, but chart title is always vertical versus horizontal. In this case, it's going to be force versus displacement. And you could enter right away and immediately puts it up here on top. And now let's scroll down a bit. We'd like to turn off the legend. We really don't need it with one piece of data. And then go down to Series 1, expand that, and keep scrolling down a little bit. We would love to have a trend line. So turn that on. It'll put one on immediately. If you expand trend line, we would love to have the equation. So underneath trend line, go down to the bottom here, turn on equations and value, and make sure a display equation on chart shows up, and there it is. And everything else there should be just fine. We don't need a second trend line. And at that point, you can close that. And you should be able to kind of drag that around a bit. There we go. There's one issue. You can't edit this trend line on here. So over on the side here, I want to put the fixed or repaired formula. You're like, wait, what do you mean? Well, in the formula, the variable on the vertical axis is y. Here it should be force. And we're using x here. Well, the variable on our x-axis is actually displacement. So what should our formula be? It should be something like this. Force is equal to, and then the slope, and I'm just going to go to 3 sig fig, so 6.72, and then we'll add units later, times the displacement. And there is a tiny y-intercept here, but that's less than 5% of the value of the slope, so I'm just going to drop it off completely. Now just a few things on this one. I'm going to highlight displacement, make it bold if I can, and the same thing with the force, just to indicate these are my variables. And now inside of here, my slope, I'm going to change the color on that and make it blue. I don't know which color blue. I'll just use this one. Now, what are the units for my slope? Well, if you look at the graph, slope, remember, is rise over run. So in this case, the vertical part here would be measured in newtons. That's the unit for that axis. And my horizontal will be measured in meters. So my units for my slope are newtons over meters. And over here then, this is, and I guess I can make it a little bit larger, is the equation then that describes this curve. And just a real quick note on this one, if you haven't realized already, this is the format of Hooke's law, where the force on the spring is equal to negative k times delta x, the displacement. So what is this 6.72 newtons per meter? It's the spring constant. And it literally tells us that this particular spring would take 6.72 newtons to stretch it each meter, or additional meter. And that is the spring constant. You're going to do the exact same thing again for the long spring. Same thing, you're going to create a displacement and force, two columns, graph those, fix your graph as well, find your formula, put your trend line on, find formula, and then fix your formula and put it off on the side. You can actually put both of these either on the same sheet, or you can go down here and make a new sheet. One of my favorite things to do is actually duplicate this sheet, and then you can just change your data here to make things a little bit easier. Hopefully this helps and makes some sense. But yeah, that's all you have to do to graph on the online version of Excel. Good luck. Talk to you soon.